We raced through the thick forest, and the Silithic followed.
"Need to slow them!"
Jack shouted somewhere to my left. "I can't trace while at a gallop," I replied, more out of frustration than in response to the big warrior. Twisted in my saddle with one hand on the rune tablet fastened to my belt, it was all I could do to not be thrown from the horse. Focusing on pulling sorceress energy through the tablet, riding the waves of flame and frost that surged through my veins and threatened to consume me from the inside, was an impossibility while my ass was bouncing in the saddle. Somehow, Arthur managed. I felt the release of rune magic to my right before seeing the glow. A blue frost spike, forming from the tip of the mage's outstretched hand like a crystal javelin. His hair tie had come loose, sending his silky blonde hair swirling around his head in a halo of yellow as he traced. The frost spike launched away, pulling my eye toward the army of Silithic beetles and wasps close on our collective tail. The rune magic spell hit the ground and shattered, releasing energy in a white ring that burst in all directions like a pebble dropped in a pond. Every beetle caught within the frost spike ring slowed and then froze in mid-slither, a line of statues interspersed between the trees. For a moment the sight was almost beautiful, and then the Silithic army behind trampled over them, shattering them like they were made of glass. Arthur's jaw clenched as he began to trace anew. I tightened my fingers on the reins. If I slowed my gallop, just for a few moments, I could trace a fireball.
"Don't!"
Jack growled to my left. I whipped my head and found him staring over at me, face hidden behind the steel of his great helm. He was a tremendous sight in his armor, a god wrought in steel, and his command carried weight. I pretended to be confused. "I don't know what you're talking about."
"If you cannot trace at this speed, then you cannot trace,"
he said.
"If you slow, you'll be overrun. If we don't figure something out soon,"
Ryan yelled while gesturing with a dagger,
"we're going to be overrun regardless."
We'd received orders to return to the capital, both to complete our quintillate bonding ceremony and to receive new orders from the field marshal. We were half a day from arriving when we received a rune message alert that the remaining burrowing Silithic armies had surfaced outside the city. We spent the morning pushing the horses at a gallop, afraid we would not reach the city in time, afraid the Arcanon itself would crumble before the might of the Silithic hive mind with a single blow to its heart. And then we ran into the rear of one of the Silithic armies, still miles from the city. I hated fleeing. Even though we had circled around the swarm and were now galloping toward the city so we could assist in its defense, it felt like fleeing. There were enemies behind us and we weren't meeting them in battle. The feeling was exacerbated by my inability to help. Rune tracing required precise fingertips moving along the carved runes at the correct pace, like running one's finger along the rim of a crystal to produce a ringing sound. Anything other than perfection resulted in the rune magic fizzling away. Trace too slow, and not enough energy would accumulate, but trace too fast, and it would compress on itself and disappear. And if your finger skipped over the rune, the entire thing fell away like someone had knocked the sorceress wind out of you. From the first academy to the 5th, rune tracers were taught that it was nearly impossible to successfully trace while panicked, that calmness was the groove into which rune magic flowed. But of course finding calmness was impossible while being enveloped by a Silithic army, to say nothing of the bouncing in the saddle. As if to taunt me, I felt Arthur launch another frost spike. The resulting burst of rune magic among the Silithic masses was even larger than before. His success only accentuated my failure.